Hello, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching NDTV. The opposition has made a big charge at the ruling coalition today, the Treasury benches of the Lok Sabha, saying that the House is being run without any regard for traditions that have defined our parliamentary democracy for years. In a letter given to the Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla today, opposition MPs have alleged that there is no deputy speaker since 2019. Consultative committees are not being convened often as is the norm. Parliamentary panels are being put in place without consulting the opposition, and more importantly, the leader of the opposition is not getting rightful opportunities to speak, and that even opposition MPs are not given adequate time. Now, NDA MPs have dismissed these allegations completely, saying that it is the opposition MPs who want to disrupt the House by raising issues that don't really matter to people because they don't want legislative business to run. Now, as journalists covering the parliament, we often see MPs from across parties showing their regard for parliamentary procedures, traditions. So why are these allegations being raised by the opposition? What has been the trigger? Unlike the first half of the budget session that saw aggressive protests by both the BJP and the opposition centered around Babasaheb Ambedkar, this session has actually seen discussions on bills, even their passage, with a larger message that governance is important. But the marker of a functioning democracy is also how vocal the opposition is. Is the opposition actually being silenced, or are these allegations being raised by the opposition only to play the victim here? Should the BJP also indulge in a lot more backroom talks, confidence-building measures? That's all we discussed tonight. We will be joined by a panel of guests, but first, let's show you some reactions.
Issue in 0 hour today. Will they be allowed today?
I'm not allowed to speak, brother. I don't know what we're scared of. Sir, you should say this on camera, sir, please.
इंडिया अलायंस का एक डेलीगेशन शून्यकाल के समय में आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय से मिले और हमने अपनी सामूहिक चिंता और सामूहिक दुख आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय के समक्ष रखा कि किस प्रकार से सत्ता पक्ष सदन की परंपरा, नियमों और संस्कृति का उल्लंघन कर रही है.
I can only say, as a member of the Lok Sabha who sits in the Lok Sabha right from morning till it ends in the evening, that whatever allegations that they are making are absolutely false, groundless, and far from the truth. The Speaker has been very considerate. Speaker has been giving ample time to all the members of the Parliament. Who prevents Rahul Gandhi ji to speak on the Immigration and Foreigners Bill 2025? Let me ask you. Why 0 hour? He can come up and he can say that he wants to speak on the bill, and who can prevent him? Rahul Gandhi ji, who doesn't even sit in the Lok Sabha. I will just request him, as a member of the Lok Sabha, as his colleague in the Lok Sabha, that he should actually find more time for the Lok Sabha. He should be seated in the Lok Sabha. I want to ask him how many Rule 377 issues he has raised so far. Number two, how many 0 hour he's actually uploaded in the members portal. I mean, this is something which I will request all of you to actually get into.
On Mr. Rahul Gandhi's behavior in the parliament, Mr. Rahul Gandhi behaves like an entitled, spoiled prince. Mr. Rahul Gandhi did not even respect or show a parliamentary behavior towards the late Sardar Manmohan Singh when he openly announced the tearing of the ordinance. So what the country can expect, how should he behave towards the BJP and the entire parliament? Mr. Rahul Gandhi is a worst performing parliamentarian in terms of attendance, in terms of asking questions and raising valid questions. Mr. Rahul Gandhi is only interested in making noise and not indulging in serious politics.
Arun Nehru, an MP from the DMK in Tamil Nadu, joins us. Thank you, Mr. Nehru, for joining us on this debate. My first question to you, sir, would you agree with the allegations that have been raised by some opposition MPs that parliamentary traditions are being ignored and that the opposition does not get enough time to speak? Because at least this session, the DMK raised a lot of points, and although there was a lot of back and forth, you had speakers who spoke from your end.
Madam, it's good evening, first of all. What you have to understand is one small data point. UPA 2 had a minimum of 108 working days, madam, parliamentary working days. NDA 1 had nearly 70. NDA 2 had 57. And I think they're on track to, to match or actually be lower than 57 days. So imagine that based on the numbers that they have, you have more time based on the numbers. So opposition, being the opposition, already has very little time to discuss issues. And time and again, there have been attempts by the ruling party to stifle the opinion and the voices. And most of these were incidentary speeches. It's not even issue-based speeches that were, done by the ruling party in order to instigate the opposition into the well. So, ruling party being the ruling party should actually give the benefit of doubt to the opposition and hear the opposition out. And we have been telling from day one that we want discussion. We want debates to go on. And when they instigate the opposition by passing really not so parliamentary remarks on members of the opposition, it doesn't bode well for for such a old institution like the parliament.
Mr. Nehru, there's also this important allegation that standing committees are not independent anymore, and that, the working of the standing committees is not autonomous anymore, and that the Speaker's office has some interference. That's the allegation that the opposition has raised. And the opposition is also saying that the opposition is not consulted in the formation of these committees, as has been the tradition earlier. We know that DMK leaders, including Tiruchi Shiva or Kanimoyi, also head committees. A lot of these standing committee reports, I was looking at them, don't really have dissent notes. So then how do you see the allegations by the opposition that standing committees are not working as they did in the past?
So the Speaker's office had a lot of discretion with respect to the committees and the reports that are being filed to the Parliament for public consumption. But of late, it has been customary to have the agenda that is being set, very I think, towards the government, and not any dissent, or for that matter, any clear public opinion coming into the reports. And the Speaker's office constitutionally has a lot of power in deciding, what to let in, what not to let in. And customary has been that dissent notes has always been part and parcel of the, the democracy that we are in. But of late, I think even that dissent is being stifled with, many directions coming to many committees, right from shrinking the agendas to even restricting the topics to be discussed, or for that matter, certain departments which really don't, follow the constitution requirement that the committee needs to be answered to. So I think that kind of creates a very strong negative sentiment for the public to know the data from, third party, organizations like the committee, which help the government and which help members of the public to know how the democracy is functioning pretty well.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Nehru, for joining us and for making those points. Let's listen into what the BJP also has to say about this. Thank you, Mr. Nehru, for joining us on this broadcast. We have Tom Vadakkan from the BJP. We also have Adil Singh Boparai from the Congress Party, and Neerja Chaudhary, senior journalist and author, joining us now. Thank you, all of you, for joining me on this show. Tom Vadakkan, you heard the DMK spokesperson. We'll also get BJP ministers in a bit, and also the chief whip. But Mr. Vadakkan, several charges are being raised by the opposition here. Let's start with some basic questions that they are raising. The appointment of a deputy Lok Sabha speaker, considering the House is different this time with a significant opposition presence, why not do that to ensure that the opposition does not feel that it is being unheard?
Well, with the speaker in his chair, the kind of disrespect they have been showing, a deputy speaker will only be an add-on. The reason they talk about a convention, for the last two sessions, we did not see a deputy speaker. And in 2019 to 24, you had Mr. Annadurai, AIDMK, an NDA alliance member. So this is not about, the constitution doesn't say that a person has to be appointed by a particular date. So we will see as the kind of cooperation we'll see from them. We'll examine the matter as time progresses. We are not taking a hardcore position at this juncture, but there has to be, it takes two hands to clap. And what Mr. Rahul Gandhi is doing, as I call him, a prime heckler in Parliament. What is the context of these 12 points that the opposition has written to the Speaker. Let me address the issue from why it has happened. This gentleman, the LoP, walks into Parliament in his own style. There is a member speaking from his own party. He walks up to his sister, touches her cheek. Now, this is and the Speaker was surprised at this move because there's a protocol. You come and bow before the Speaker, and then you walk up, and there is a Speaker speaking from your own party. You're not bothered. You go and show your affection towards your sister. It could be a sister, it could be an uncle, it could be an auntie, it could be a mother, it could be a daughter. That's not the issue. The place for affection is your drawing room, okay? If you have not been spending quality time with your relatives, that's your problem. Parliament is not a place where you can. A wife may be there, a husband may be there in Parliament, but that's not the place to display affection. There's a decorum. A parliamentarian is being watched by the whole nation.
Sides to that, I think, I would sort of disagree with that because, I completely respect your view. But, apart from that, the other allegations that the opposition has raised, some of them seem valid, especially the appointment of a deputy speaker, which you rightly addressed also. Other thing, Boparai, what do you want to say responding to Tom Vadakan? Because, I also wanted to ask you this question. If you say that standing committees are not working independently, why do I not see more dissent notes in the reports that have been submitted by the standing committees?
Vasudha, this issue is far too critical to be lost in political din and allegation and counter-allegation. In a democracy, the parliament is the lifeblood. The parliament is the forum which represents 1.4 billion people. Now, of course, we have ideological differences with the BJP. But the fact of the matter is that this forum must allow free flow and exchange of comments and points of view. The position of the presiding officers of the House is a very exalted position. The Speaker of the House or the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha cannot be partisan in any manner whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, they must exhibit and demonstrate objectivity and fair-handedness. Unfortunately, what we notice is that time and again, the opposition's voice is being stifled. The opposition's voice is being suppressed.
Okay.
In an environment where the ruling dispensation starts using its brute majority and even wants to abridge or extinguish a contrary point of view, I think that is antithetical to democracy.
But Adil, it's not a brute majority anymore because, you also have 99 MPs. But when it comes to the, this election or selection of a deputy Lok Sabha speaker, I've not really seen the Congress push this also. So, clearly there seems to be some reluctance on the part of the Congress to ensure that these issues are put in place. Let me get Neerja here, ma'am. How do you see the constant sparring between the opposition and the BJP? And this time in this letter, they're saying that old-fashioned traditions are being neglected. Do you think that the BJP also needs behind-the-scenes confidence-building measures that we have seen in the past?
Look, spats and standoffs between the opposition and the ruling side in Parliament is nothing new. We've known it for decades. But there seems to be a growing bitterness between the two sides, which is vitiating the whole atmosphere and the functioning of Parliament. And one sometimes thinks, are we headed towards a breakdown? And it's not a happy situation now. Whether or not the Congress and the opposition are justified in feeling that LoP has not been allowed to have a say, that standing committees are not functioning fairly or impartially, or that Business Advisory Committee is not functioning properly and the views of the opposition are not taken on board in terms of fixing things in Parliament. Those are very serious charges to make. And even if it's only a perception I think it's the ruling side, the ruling party that has to ensure that Parliament runs smoothly and fairly. So I think some initiative is called for. You may call it unreasonable on the part of the opposition, but if Parliament has to function properly, and that is so, Parliament is the heartbeat of India's democracy, then the initiative, some kind of a new initiative has to come from the ruling side, and particularly from the chair, Lok Sabha Speaker and the chair of the Rajya Sabha,
Neeta,
to
ma'am, when they
get
say
them
that
across the
traditions,
table and
right,
find a
when
way
they say that
out.
traditions are being unfollowed or there's a departure from traditions, when the LoP stands, he gets a chance to speak, or that the BAC, the Business Advisory Council, is sacrosanct. The opposition says that it was not told about the Prime Minister's statement last week, or that the consultative committees are not being held. What used to happen in the past? Why is the opposition constantly talking about traditions being broken here?
I think, I don't remember complaints coming that the standing committees or the consultative committees were not working well. Those were fora where they seemed to work well for all their differences in the House. And whole sessions would be wiped out. But standing committees and consultative committees, that kind of criticism didn't come earlier. Other kinds of things, yes, they're not allowed to have a say, not allowed to have a discussion, or the opposition view is not being taken on board, therefore they don't allow the House to function. Those things we have seen session after session, year after year. And Parliament being used, there is a place for street politics. Parliament wasn't meant to be that, but Parliament was often used to send a signal across to their constituencies.
Right.
But what the opposition is now saying about standing committees,
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Neeta, ma'am. We have a special guest joining us now. Thank you all of you for joining me on this broadcast. Sanjay Jaiswal, the Chief Whip of the 18th Lok Sabha BJP leader and also BJP MP, joins us now. Thank you, Sanjay ji, for joining us on this broadcast. My first question to you, sir. Opposition has raised some serious charges saying that the leader of the opposition is not allowed to speak and that traditions are being broken. How do you see this?
The problem with LoP is that he doesn't know parliamentary procedure. He doesn't have even a faint idea that how parliamentary procedures run. Whenever he has stood up, he is allowed to speak. But there are some norms. Like when a minister or prime minister gives a suo moto reply, then nobody can ask questions to it. So that day it was a suo moto statement given by our honorable prime minister. And not only prime minister, any minister, if he gives a suo moto statement, nobody can ask questions on him. He stood up and he was trying to ask questions with prime minister. He doesn't know the norm that what things, how the constitution and the parliament runs. He did just what has he done in the parliament. Everybody knows 2 days before the parliament got adjourned only because of his conduct inside the parliament. Running parliament is not your home affair. You cannot do the way you treat people at home or the way you treat people in Congress party. There are certain norms. Can he show us even one example in 75 years of Indian parliamentary history that any minister has given a suo moto statement and then there has been a question raised by anyone? It has never happened. He doesn't study what are the rules and procedures of the parliament, and he wants that like his house or like he runs Congress party as his, just like his home. He wants to run the parliament. That's never going to happen. Parliament runs by rules and procedures, which he never follows because he thinks being a Farji Gandhi family, he is above everyone.
Right. So the second critical charge or allegation that the opposition is making is with regard to the Business Advisory Council, something that you've been part of. Business Advisory Council is considered extremely critical for the working of the parliament because it also decides in some ways issues that will be taken up and kind of number of hours that will be dedicated to respective discussions. The opposition is saying that the BAC deliberations are not being taken seriously in the working of the House. How do you respond to that?
I have seen at least 30 times because I have been member of BSc for more than 11 years now. I have seen at least 30 times that Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary has promised something in BSc, Suresh has said something in BSc, and when he goes out of the BSc and comes back, he didn't follow what he has said in the BSc. So we know it very well that in Congress, the deputy leader Gaurav Gogoi and Mr. Suresh are the members. Whatever they say in BSc, it doesn't matter for Congress party. When they will go back, they will talk to their boss and then only they can decide what are the things to be taken. Except Congress party, I don't know any party whose decisions has been made in BSc and not been followed. But in Congress, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary was leader of opposition. Still, whatever he has said in BSc that, okay, tomorrow we will run parliament peacefully, but tomorrow the scene will be separate. And then he will show his inability that he can't do anything. He is an LoP. If he wants to be a member of BSc, he is most welcome. Chirag Paswan is a member of BSc, though he is a minister, cabinet minister. It has never happened. You can see the proceedings of the BSc. Whatever the proceedings in the BSc has happened, that has been followed by the parliament, not what is the whim of Rahul Gandhi.
Mr. Jaiswal, my last question to you, sir. There's also another allegation that the opposition MPs are raising, which is with regard to the working of the standing committees. They're saying that parliamentary standing committees are no longer working independently. They, in fact, take instructions from the Speaker's office, and that consultative committees are not being convened as they should be. So clearly, they're saying that there is interference in the working of these committees. What would your response be?
That's why what kind of allegations they are, I'm unable to understand. Standing committees meeting, we decide. I am chairman of estimates committee. We decide what are the subjects we chose. We decide how it is being discussed. You look at the standing committee, 95% of the standing committee doesn't have any dissent note. Why it's happens so? There are some issues where everyone has to follow what Mr. Rahul Gandhi says, and that's the only point where the problem starts. If the problem would have been universal, how it has come that 95%, or if I'm not wrong, maybe it is 99% of standing committee's report are without any dissent note. So, and consultative committee, every minister calls the consultative committee. It can be quite often also, there's nothing wrong in it. But the minimum criteria rule is that it has to be done within 3 months. Every minister had a consultative committee meeting during December session, and they all are having at present also. So it's not more than 3 months. I fail to understand why Mr. Gandhi says he only knows how to put allegations. He doesn't study anything. He doesn't knows what the parliamentary procedure is. My sincere request to him that now he has become LoP, at least read one time what are the rules and procedures of parliament, which he hasn't read since last 20 years.
Thank you so much, Sanjay Jaiswal, Chief Whip of the 18th Lok Sabha, and also BJP leader and BJP MP for speaking to NDTV. Well, a delegation of India bloc leaders gave a letter to the Lok Sabha Speaker today stating how the ruling party is violating the traditions, rules and culture of the House. This is a big claim that they've made. BJP and NDA leaders have dismissed these allegations, saying that the House is being run as per rules. A working parliament that represents all voices is clearly the true hallmark of our democracy. And while making your voice heard in the parliament is important, it's a good thing that we live in times where voices find their way to be heard inside and outside the parliament, in some ways empowering us to decide who is stifling whose voice and also who is probably raising a stink when there's none. With that, it's a wrap from me. More news and updates on the other side.